Hey, hi, this is Sandeep, and in this tutorial, I'll explain you about the declarative validations, how to do them, and some concepts about them. Okay, so first of all, starting this tutorial, I would like to explain you that there are basically two types of validations. One is entity level validation, and one is attribute level validation. Okay, so here I have got department EO and employees EO, as well as their view objects also. So let's go ahead and see what is inside them. For example, if I click on employees EO, here are the attributes, and here are the validation rules present over them. So what happens is that all these validation rules that you are actually seeing over here, okay, they have come from database constraints. For example, if something is mandatory or something is not null is basically converted to the mandatory, and their precision, their longest character, whatever they can hold. So these kinds of things are converted to the attribute level of validations. You can come over here also and see there are two types of validations: attribute and entity validator. So here all those attribute level validators are present over here. Okay, so just I would like to explain you two things over here. Not all the things in the database are converted into the validations. Okay, for example, if you remember the department ID over here, right, the department ID in this employee table is a foreign key basically, which references to the department ID of department table. So we should have only department IDs present over here, which are already present in the department ID of department table, right? So one thing is about this department ID. The another thing here, you need to, let's just run and I will show you something. And here, as you are seeing, the department ID has got only one validator, right? So, and this validator, what it says precision will be 4, nothing more than that. Okay, so it just converts that precision thing of the database, whatever precision was applied on the column of the table of department ID, I mean on the column department ID of the employee table, whatever constraint was there, whatever precision rule was there, that has been converted, and here you are seeing the same. But no such thing or no such validation is present which would ensure that department ID should have some value which is already present in the department ID of department table. So even if you run this, you will find the same. Here is the output, and here's our employees. Okay, so as you see over here, as you scroll through departments, so all these I am scrolling through the records, all these are already present. So let's say I update this record and say that department ID is 420. Now this department ID is not even present in the department table. So basically right now I am giving it an invalid value. Okay, and if I click on validate, it validates it fine. That is to say, this model tester, whatever is present before you, this is validating it fine, because in the business rules over here, no such validation is actually present which would ensure that this value must be a value which is already present in the department table. Okay, so no such validation rule has been created, no such built-in validation rule has been created like that. So that's the reason when I click on validate, it is validating it. Okay, but when I click on save changes, it throws an exception. So now when I click on update, it tries to update it, and when it tries to update, it gets that there was this constraint which is violating. So this is basically something runtime exception. Okay, this is, don't think that this error is coming just because ADF has got something to do with, or ADF has defined some kind of a validation over this. No, this is not a validation message. This is a message that something, some constraint, some foreign key constraint at the back end has violated this operation. I mean, this operation has violated that constraint. Okay, so this is how it goes. Similarly, if you see email ID, okay, if you see email over here, this is called this one. So we have got only 2 validation rule presents over here. Okay, and that too, it doesn't ensure that they are unique. Okay, but if you see over here, if you click on the email, here it is marked as unique. So what is the significance of this unique and primary key? Actually, when we should have these values same as whatever are present in the database. For example, if the database contains a unique constraint on this email, which was actually, if you see into the table, you will find that email email column was having a unique constraint in the database level, at the database level. So here also it has been ticked. It just shows that it is in sync with the database. Or one more thing is that if the table doesn't exist, and if you click over here and if you try to generate the table from the ADF in the forward generation kind of a thing, then whatever the table is created, the email column will get the unique constraint in the database. Okay, that's the forward generation, but we are interested in the reverse engineering right now. So these two are just meant to show you what is, or what is actually existing in the database. We should have these settings or configurations in sync with what is existing in the DB. Okay, so don't think that this is clicked as unique, this is checked as unique, so a unique constraint is applied over this. No, if you need to see the constraint, only these are the constraint, and here none of the constraint says that this is unique. Okay, so basically here this is the thing. So now suppose you need to apply a unique constraint. Okay, you need to ensure that whatever the user enters, there is a unique value of email over that. So what we will do, first thing to understand here is that the unique constraint, if you want to apply unique validator, okay, that is not something attribute, that is not something of attribute level validation, that is something belonging to entity level of validation. Okay, so here we have to define. Second thing to understand is that, okay, then we will go over here and we will define unique constraint over the email. That's fine. But second thing to understand is that unique constraint can only be defined on a primary key or an alternate key. Okay, so you can define on employee ID unique key, or you can define a unique key on email ID. I'm sorry, you can define only on the email ID, because only on the employee ID, because right now employee ID is the primary key. Now I need to define it over email ID. So right now what I can do, I can declare it as alternate key. Whatever alternate keys and primary keys are there, over that you have the ability to define unique constraint. So let's go ahead and define alternate key. For that we'll go to the general tab. We will see what are the alternate keys. Right here nothing is there. Okay, so I will click plus and I will say that boss, make this email, and this is the alternate key name, whatever you want to name it, you can name it. I say okay. So now email has been named as the alternate key over here. Now I can go inside the business rule. And say that I want to define a new validator, and I want a unique key. Okay, now it will ask you on which you want. So it is giving you two options, one is primary key and one is alternate key. You can select any one of them, but I am interested right now in this, so I'll select this, and I will say in the failure handling that if this fails, if whatever you are entering is already existing in the records, then display this email already exists, please enter something unique. Okay, so let's say okay. Now we'll save it and we'll run it. So now if you click on employees, okay, so let's remember that here is asking email ID. Okay, asking email ID belongs to this employee ID. Let's go to other record. Here I've got 101. Now let's say that I deliberately want to update his email ID to asking. Now you know that asking already exists, and now whatever you are entering is not unique. Asking email ID already exists for employee ID of 100, right? So when you tab out, this will say this email already exists, please enter something unique. My validation has triggered actually. Okay, and even if you click validate, then also it will actually validate it, and it will throw you the same error message whatever I defined earlier. So this shows basically that what I was trying to show you, that all business rules or all kind of validations will be shown over here. Okay, so if you go in the attributes, if you double click it, don't get confused that if this is marked as unique or primary key, then those must be unique. Okay, if you want ADF to run some kind of a validation, then those all validation list of validation are present over here. Nothing else is present right now. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next tutorial.